still can in the official JJ merchandise store in the thing below. That's right, I do have a merch store more broadly as well, where you can buy a bunch of different t-shirts featuring some of my Canada-inspired characters and jokes from my YouTube channel. So don't delay, get your hands on some exciting JJ merch today, including final copies of the first print run of Canada. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Your poor office mate.
I don't know what you're talking about, Mike.
You must crush the wheels of industry under the might of your keys. Take them down. These are the rules you have to learn.
I only realized after the video went up, and a lot of people were leaving a bunch of comments about my office mate who must have been overhearing me do this script over and over again. I only realized once reading those the true strangeness of his perspective, because he rented the office next to mine at some point in the summer when I was away. And though I never see him because I don't have to walk past his office, he does see my office. And so he would have walked past this empty room with two desks stacked on top of each other and no chair and nothing inside of it. And thought, I wonder what's going on in the office next door.
I wonder why this storage closet is not.
Right, exactly.
Because why would there be two tables on top of each other? They were just storing them.
Perfectly reasonable assumption. And then, at some point from his perspective, the neighbor just shows up and is walking through this half-written script on the rules of power constantly at odd hours. Like he never would have heard me talking about anything other than this single topic. And he would have heard me talking just this morning, doing it again with the follow-up videos. So this is, whatever it is, from the start of September until now, this is all he has heard from me next door. After being in the office on his own for a while, probably wondering what the deal is with the stranger room next door, and then finding out.
I don't know if he's found out.
Yeah, I don't mean found out as in he understands what's occurring. I mean found out as in, like, oh, this is what's next door. A crazy person.
I don't even know if you think that was crazy. Like, I would think it would be scary. So we're talking about the rules for rulers.
Yes.
The worst part of this is that this isn't even a hello, I'm CGP Grey talking to you, the internet video. This is I am a dictator, and I am telling you, learned dictator, who's trying to rise up the ranks, how to control the world. That's the real problem with this, is it's not just explaining these things, it's talking about them as if you're already doing them.
Yeah, it was a little bit of the screw tape letters, like of the senior demons talking to the lower level demon. Like this is kind of what it was. And so yes, this is why on the last episode we had a little bit of a discussion about, like in your videos, thinking about the things you're adding on the screen as the editor, as like a separate person. I was very aware in writing and rewriting this video, spending a lot of time trying to find like what is the voice and how am I actually going to talk through all of these things. And I did eventually decide on exactly what that was, which is this feeling like this is someone who is instructing an apprentice. Like that's the mood that I'm going for here. That's what I'm going to try to achieve when I record the audio. And people might not realize, like when I'm actually working through the script, I am saying it just like that because I'm trying to hear how are each of these lines going to sound when they're spoken. So the voice in that video is the voice next door to this guy for months.
So dear listener, if you've not yet watched this video, go and watch this video now, because we're going to talk about it and want to make sense to you. Now, I want to know where the idea for this one came from, because it's kind of like some of the other stuff that you've done. Like in the you've done videos about mayors and popes and kings and things like that. So there's some links there, and I guess there's some geographical ties to it because you're talking about controlling countries. But it feels a little bit different, and also the presentation was a little bit different. Where did your original idea for this one come from?
So there's a thing when I look at the videos. Maybe a recurring theme in this conversation, but I often just see what they are.
Oh, please shut up.
Very...
God damn. Oh, what?
When you book an Airbnb, it's supposed to be a home away from home, somewhere you feel relaxed, comfortable, and safe. But that wasn't the case for one Ottawa family who found a hidden camera in their Brampton, Ontario Airbnb, and they discovered it where one person was sleeping.
We don't know what happened with the footage. We don't know what they heard. We don't know if they did record anything. We just don't know, right?
Jazz Graywall was staying at a Brampton Airbnb with his 3 cousins last week. He says at first their stay was great until they made a disturbing discovery.
We were trying to plug our laptop into the TV, and we were looking for an HDMI cable. When he went to look for the HDMI cable, he saw that there was like a cabinet that had a little hole, a peephole. When he looked closer, the cabinet was locked, so you couldn't actually access the cabinet. It was like a camera behind it that was locked. That's when we figured out that there was a hidden camera in our living space. The mattress was right in front of it.
Who was sleeping on the mattress?
So my cousin was there was 3 males, my brother, my other cousin, and his sister was sleeping on the mattress.
That's fucked up.
Right in front of the camera.
Graywall says after messaging the Airbnb host that they would need additional time to leave, they received this message from the host, which reads in part, "Hello Jay, you definitely need more time." That message made them feel like they were being watched. On Airbnb's website, it clearly states security measures like security cameras and noise monitoring devices are allowed, as long as they are clearly disclosed in the listing description and don't infringe on another person's privacy. Rules about devices apply to all cameras, recording devices, smart devices, and monitoring devices. Graywall says that wasn't the case for this listing.
If somebody had told us, hey, listen, there's a camera here, if it's visible, or if somebody just told us it's there, it's a whole different story.
We reached out to Airbnb for a comment, and here's what we received. Airbnb has a clear policy when it comes to the use of security cameras in homes that must be adhered to by all hosts. We take guest privacy seriously, and our dedicated safety team is thoroughly investigating. A full refund has been given to the guests, and the listing has been deactivated pending the investigation.
It's not about the money at this point, right?
Yeah.
It's just, we don't know what kind of footage, what kind of pictures, what kind of audio might be sitting with somebody that we don't even know.
Graywall says the experience has left a very bitter taste in his mouth. He says he used to stay at Airbnbs all the time, but will now switch over to hotels as he thinks they may be a safer option.
Oh yeah,
For
definitely.
City News, I'm Alika Sheikh.
Welcome to HostAway, the fastest growing vacation rental solution for property managers in the world. If you've been searching for a complete solution for your property management business, your search stops here. Today, we're going to show you how you can combine a powerful channel manager with sophisticated property management software to save you time and help you focus on more bookings. So let's get started by quickly looking at the main dashboard. This is the hub of your business. Here, you can see all your reservations and revenue, your messages, and all your listings in real time. HostAway also has powerful calendar functionality that integrates with Airbnb.
The Pope has arrived back at the Vatican, but not before making major news on the flight home. Speaking with reporters on the plane, he uttered a word he hadn't spoken on his Canadian tour: genocide. Pope Francis told the journalists he agrees that attempts to erase Indigenous culture through the residential school system amounted to cultural genocide.
Yep.
Non ho usato la parola perché non mi
Yeah,
è
that's
venuto in
coming
mente,
into the
ma ho descritto genocidio, no?
yeah.
The Pope said while the actual word didn't come to mind while he was in Canada, everything
It
he
should.
described in his apologies here was genocide. He
Yep.
said he clearly condemned what happened and repeated that he asked for forgiveness. CBC's Megan Williams was traveling with the Pope and files this report.
I'm
The 6-day papal trip to Canada ended this morning. Throughout his trip, the Pope apologized to Indigenous peoples in Canada for the role
I don't know.
of Catholics in running the majority
Just-
of residential schools where Indigenous children were forcibly assimilated. Now, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission concluded the schools amounted to cultural genocide, but the Pope never used that word during his trip. But he did on the way back to here in Rome. There's always an in-flight press conference during these papal trips, and Canadian journalists on this one got to ask the first couple of questions, and one was about the word genocide and why the Pope didn't mention it on the trip. And he said it was true, he didn't use the word genocide because it didn't come to mind, but he said he described it, the taking away of children, changing culture,
Yep.
the mind, traditions, so-called race. And so he said, yes, the Catholics who were running
just
the
like, you know,
residential
like-
schools in Canada participated in genocide.
You're just like something.
Now, the other question asked by my CBC Indigenous
broken
colleague, Gancio Deer,
I think
was
it's
about
non-stop
the
now.
calls to rescind the doctrine of
I don't know.
discovery, which is the justification for
Like I get, he's like
for
cool with the
colonization
gays,
dating back
and
to
he's
the
like,
15th century. And the Pope said that this mentality of Europeans towards
something that
Indigenous
doesn't feel right about
people
him.
was wrong, and that efforts that's necessary to sort of cleanse that past. But he didn't say anything more concrete. The 85-year-old Pope looked alert but quite tired. He said that he needs to slow down his pace. This summer, he canceled a couple of other trips, but he kept the Canadian one, which shows, I think, how important it was for the Pope to come to Canada. But he says he just can't keep up the same pace because of his age and because of the knee trouble that he's been facing in recent months. But he did say it's very important for him to go to Kyiv, which is the top of his list in terms of next papal trips, and that could happen perhaps in August, perhaps in September. The Pope didn't say a date, but higher up Vatican officials say it'll probably happen within the next month or so. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
I felt like a
Rob
publicity
Pitawanakat is a
stunt.
coordinator of York University's Indigenous Studies program, and he's here with his reaction to the Pope linking the word genocide to what happened in Canada's residential schools.
I think it's an important development. It's late. The
I feel like
Catholic Church was noted
Even
for
just
being
acknowledging
always
Kyiv, like,
I guess the strangler in terms of the
why was that
apologies
necessary?
to residential school survivors.
Personally, like, I just
All
don't
the
feel
other
like that was
churches
necessary.
moved faster in terms of providing documents, acknowledging past harms, and so for the Pope to, at least as he's already on his way back, acknowledge that genocide is an appropriate term. As you'll remember, when the Truth and Reconciliation Commission used that phrase cultural genocide, there was some
Like, God
there was
forbid the
enough-
Pope wants a fucking golf course. Holy shit!
and,
Like,
you ended up having
fucking within the day they could get
It does
fucking
have
military
going
in
too
here.
far,
Like,
but actually others would say
that was a
by
historical
both
moment that was not documented in history properly either.
That is not going far enough. I think the issue around the discovery of remains on former residential school sites has pushed us further
Yeah.
in terms of acknowledging now we can look at this as
Yeah,
being
but
also about the physical genocide. I mean, clearly we've known thousands of Indigenous children died, lost their lives in the residential school system, and it is important that the Pope is finally acknowledging the harms that caused.
Pitawanakat says the Catholic Church has failed to live up to its promises to support and compensate those affected by residential schools. He's still hoping the Pope's visit will change that.
oh my gosh. Birds in Toronto. Let's go flip it around. They did not. Are you fucking serious? That's what I'm saying. Like, honestly, this seems like more of a fucking publicity stunt than anything. Like, I want to believe that this Pope is like, yeah, he's all into like the gay rights and he's all into like acknowledging what happened with like the First Nations people being genocided. Like, I want to believe it, but it just seems kind of fucking bullshit. Like, it seems like a bunch of fucking publicity. Like, good point, Jenna. Who the fuck is paying for this? Who the fuck paid for his trip? Alright, you know? Like, and then to follow up with, well, no bodies have been exhumed. It's like, you got fucking kidding me. Like, and now a lot of people who are doing the screenings are saying that the number of death certificates are not adding up with the number of blips that are coming up on the radar, like not even close to the same number. So, like, that's a fucking problem. There are people who are still alive who don't know what happened to their sibling. Not fair. Everyone should get to know what happened to a family member. Ah. Where are you going?
Хіба можна так издеваться? Будешь надо додому повернення, а їх взяти.
Hey, that's what fucking Cameron said.
It was the last formal engagement of the Pope's visit to Quebec, a meeting with residential school survivors and supporters. Though not technically a closed-door meeting, some say the door was shut in their face. Michelle Shenandoah presented the Pope with this cradle board as part of the delegation that went to Rome last
That's a
spring.
boost board.
They told me at that time that the Pope wished to see this cradle board when he came to Canada. That has not happened, and the Pope has just left Quebec City.
She was supposed to present it to him again on Friday, but she said she was asked to leave the meeting without reason.
Oftentimes, we become window dressing to these events. I've witnessed throughout this whole time here in Quebec City for these events.
Like, he spoke to reporters. Why didn't he speak to anyone who... I didn't see him speak to anybody who was, like...
Really, truly heard. But the issues began on Thursday night.
Just the chief of Ghanawaga, maybe?
The discovery and surrender of church records were supposed to take place. In a message, the AFNQL regional chief Shazlane Picard told APTN News that dinner's format did not allow for the conversations they wanted. Cree Nation Grand Chief Mandigo Masti.
What was the point of all this then?
Unfortunately, I really
Love you.
that was a missed opportunity.
And that's
This
not
is a
considering
publicity stunt.
headaches. Goldmasty alleges survivors and elders were not provided transport and struggled with police and language barriers.
We did not receive transport out, unfortunately, so everybody kind of had to make their way through the barriers, which is in Indigenous culture very counterintuitive to what we would do to our elders, which is make sure that as guests they are taken care of, they're brought in, they're respected, and they are returned home safely.
Event organizers told APTN News issues with transport and dinner were misunderstanding.
This fraternal meeting is not replacing in any way the important moments that we'll have in the coming months about
Fuck you, Jasmine.
see loud and clear the different topics that are important to address for the Canadian Church and the Plenary Assembly in September.
This is a publicity
where all
stunt.
the bishops will be gathered, will be an important moment.
The delegates who came to Quebec City will be waiting.
I still haven't heard any statements from the bishop, so that's what I'm looking for. That's the key place
They're not
where
gonna get it,
options
sweetheart.
can be fulfilled. It's you working with them.
Oh,
Lindsay Richardson, ABTN National News, Quebec City.
that's so sad. You wasted fucking opportunity. Fucking big publicity stunt. What was the point? What was even the point of him coming here then? Like, I just don't really understand the point of the Pope coming here to wave like the Queen and then dip.
Detained Americans Brittany Griner and Paul Whelan back to the U.S. from Russia. Now, Brittany Griner, she's a basketball star. You'll recall she was detained for bringing cannabis oil.
Poor girl.
This was, I think, a good day in the effort for justice for survivors of sexualized violence.
A new Supreme Court ruling on consent could lead to sexual assault charges for people who ignore their partner's requests to use a condom. In a 5-4 decision on Friday, the top.
Hey, how about that sexual assault charge where 7 of your fucking hockey players raped a girl?
You started a podcast in the morning, and you're going to finish it on your afternoon walk. Stay.
Because of COVID and other world challenges, we went back on track in response to HIV, TB, and malaria. And it is really critical because these are communicable diseases. It is critical that we get back on track and towards eliminating them.
As many from
Take your word
across
for
the
it,
world
lady.
attend the International AIDS Conference in Montreal, advocates are asking for a commitment from the Canadian government in funding research for HIV/AIDS. Research derailed by COVID-19.
We're really here to remind Prime Minister Trudeau that Canada has always supported the global fight against AIDS, and we want them to show up again with a $1.2 billion investment.
The Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria raises
Cool.
funds every 3 years.
Hell yeah.
This year, they're asking for
Hell
a
yeah.
total of $18 billion.
What else you got?
That would mean Canada would have to pledge
Well, you only have one
$1.2
kind.
billion, something advocates say
Thank
they
you.
have not provided
I
clearly
got cereal
on.
now. I'm gonna take all your milk.
Most effective global health organizations in the world. They have helped save over 44
See the
million
Pope?
lives since they.
Dad? You see the Pope's little fucking publicity stunt? The Pope came.
The Pope, yeah, in Canada, yeah.
Came to Quebec City.
Yeah.
Big fucking publicity stunt.
Yeah, and he says that it was genocide.
He didn't see anybody.
Yeah, but he said it was genocide.
On the plane back home to one of the reporters, and it kind of was like they asked him the question, why didn't you use the word genocide?
Yeah.
They had to ask him.
Yeah, but
They
he said
made
it
him
was
say
definitely
it.
Genocide.
Well, when you're asked the question on the spot, you can't really say no at that point, but what was the whole fucking point of that?
But the thing is,
All he did was come here and wave like the fucking
point
queen.
is, did the, what do you call it, church in
The Mayan, or the Catholic Church.
the Catholic Church in Rome, was that part of the plan?
Yes, it was systematic.
They didn't
Absolutely.
plan it in Rome. It was the Canadian government who put the natives inside these schools with the church.
But it's not just Canada, it's America too.
Yeah,
It's the whole Western.
they did the same thing in Australia. Australia, they did it with all the.
Personally, I don't really know anything about Australia. I know that most of what
The
comes out of
British.
Australia is they don't have guns because they're all criminals, and you can't
British.
believe anything that comes out of Australia.
What the British did was they used Australia at the very beginning, Australia, for all the prisoners.
Yeah.
They got rid of the prisoners and they put them on the island of Australia. And then they
Made their own fucking
And then-
nation.
then they
That's not
put-
like what's happened here, though.
And what they did was, they took all the natives too and slaughtered them.
All I know is that within the past, 20 years of my existence...
And push them all out into the boondocks.
But you couldn't fucking wait until they were all dead before you make up lies about them? At least you guys waited for all the Jews to be dead. And now you guys can go say whatever the fuck you want about the Jews.
Have their own country now.
Exactly!
Israel.
Yeah, they took over Palestine. They literally leveled Syria overnight.
Doing the same thing with the Palestinians.
Yeah, but this has been the past couple of years. It's ever since the fucking Trump leveled Syria overnight. And they were like, well, at least we'll take their fucking refugees. We can't take all the Ukrainians. There's hundreds of thousands.
Trump who leveled Syria. It was Putin who leveled Syria.
You don't remember, obviously. Trump literally sent a missile overnight.
That was after.
Oh, the place was already in rubble, yeah.
But before, it was Putin that was there.
Oh, give me a break.
And
No, he
Putin
wasn't.
was in Afghanistan before the Americans went into Afghanistan.
That I believe. But I also think we stole the NASA spaceship from them. I think it's ridiculous to be like, the brilliant Americans came up with the NASA spaceship and then kicked out Russia. Bullshit! I think they totally fucking came up with the spaceship and then we kicked them out. And we were like, hey, bye. I so don't believe that. I believe it was Russia.
Russia had their own
Yeah! Of course they do! Of course they do! You know, tough people don't have to say how tough they are. That's why I think fucking Putin's great. He just smiles. He just sits back and... He is a murderer, but he does his fucking job. They are all mass murderers, and Trudeau included. But you know what? Trudeau throws his own people under the fucking bus. That's the only difference, is our people, we throw our own people under the bus when shit goes bad. At least everybody else, they will stick to their race, I guess, or stick to their guns or whatever their beliefs are. We're just like, yeah, okay, who's the highest bidder?
Everywhere.
Oh god.
It's really frustrating. As somebody who just wants basic healthcare, I just want a doctor.
No,
I just want a doctor. That's what I was saying.
When I went onto Quick Saute, it just said that I had no doctor.
Yeah.
Montrealers
Yeah.
are calling out for help, as many are left scrambling without a family doctor.
Yeah, it was
Some
fucked up.
physicians are moving over to private
I had 2
healthcare,
family doctors.
forcing their patients back onto the government-run wait list for a public family physician.
No, I had 2
After
family
waiting
doctors, and I have 0
3
now.
years to get a doctor, Jean-François Gravel finally got one. At his next visit, he was informed that he had a new doctor. And the next, there was a different one once again. 4 years later, that same doctor went private without notice.
No shit.
If you have a doctor and you think you're in the clear, if that doctor retires or goes private, you automatically just get kicked out and you have to get back on the list and sign up again, and you basically have to get to the back of the line.
Oh, and if you're native, it's going to take you twice as long, by the way.
That's not right. I mean, you've
No,
already
I'm
been
telling you right
you
now,
shouldn't have to wait
I
again.
signed up.
The only solution
I
is
signed up Cameron first.
some degree of redundancy
A
in the
year and a half
workforce that
later,
somebody- when
I
somebody quits,
inquired in
retires,
what
gets sick,
happened
goes on
with his
mat leave,
family
and
doctor,
automatic
and they
scramble.
said they had no
The
record,
problem now is
so
that
I had
there
to
are
sign
no
up again.
Maya
At the same
Steyer has
time, I
taken
signed up
diabetes
Dom.
and waited
Within
for a
6
family
months,
doctor for
Dom had a
nearly
family
5
doctor,
years.
and 2 years later, Cameron still did not have a family doctor.
Months later in May, her doctor went private. She was given 2 weeks' notice.
If I want to renew a prescription, if I have something wrong
Yeah.
and I don't
Asthma.
want to go to the emergency, I don't want to use
Yeah.
those resources because it's not an emergency.
No.
At 6 months
I
pregnant,
don't-
Siobhan Martel was informed that her general practitioner was going private.
Oh my God.
She was given 2 months' notice.
I did have some health concerns prior to becoming pregnant.
No
I got
shit.
COVID in 2020, and that left me with some issues with my lungs that are not entirely resolved. And anything related to birth control is now a little bit up to chance because my OBGYN gave me a prescription for a birth control pill for a year. And then after that, I'm fine.
I think what you're seeing is a consequence of a lot of different issues, but one of the big ones is the pandemic. I think the pandemic really broke a lot of people, and that's why you're seeing more people transitioning into the private sector and not being part of
This is
Ramsey.
rich.
In
Like,
Montreal,
honestly,
Brittany
this
Enriquez,
is adorable.
CP
I love hearing this. It's fucking hilarious. I love watching my Canadian fucking healthcare system crumble. Because we did have a healthcare system. At one point in time, believe it or not, we did have like a legitimate healthcare system.
An unscripted moment, a ballad to the land and the village, sung to the tune of O Canada in Cree by Sipiko, an Indigenous woman from northern Manitoba. Also known as Trina Francois, she then spoke directly to Pope Francis.
You are hereby served spoken law. We, the daughters of the Great Spirit, and our tribal sovereign members cannot be coerced into any law, any treaty that is not the great law. We have appointed chiefs on our territories. Confirm yourselves accordingly. Hi does not mean thank you. It means that I have nothing more to say.
She hadn't planned to speak, but says she had to when the Pope put on a headdress over his skull cap, to her a sign of disrespect.
Silence is power, but I couldn't remain silent.
Good for you.
The moment was shared around the world, people saying they were shaken to the core. Her pain echoed theirs. This 60s scoop survivor never learned her traditional language, so she didn't understand what was being said. Still, it resonated deeply.
A lot of people across Canada. She spoke for a lot of them. And the fact that it's a woman is even that much more powerful.
I love the fact that she had the courage to say what she said and to take a stand for what she believes.
This elder is from Sipiko's home community. He says she sent an important message to the Pope, the Catholic Church, and the colonizing countries.
They had no right
I
to
agree.
come in and do what they did.
I agree.
To displace our traditional, ancestral, sacred laws that we had in place. She's asserting that we still have that and that we wish that to be respected and that the Pope should acknowledge that.
I agree.
Brenda Hatt says
That's
the
not
message is
acknowledged.
even more powerful now that she understands it.
All the hundreds of years of trying to wipe us out in Canada. And I don't say that lightly. There was a plan to genocide the Indigenous people of Canada.
That's right.
But you know what? We're still here.
I hope that it brings the people back to the land, our way of life.
This is cool. Did you see that, lady?
Leaves Canada,
That's
this
amazing.
image of resistance, strength, and spirit will remain. Karen Pauls, CBC News.
I don't know, like, we did this with Trudeau where we put, like, a headdress on him, and it was, like, I kind of
His
agree.
father?
No, Trudeau, whenever, like, Trudeau would go to India even, he puts on, like, Indian attire, and he dances
it's all
around
part
with
of the
Indian.
show, yeah.
It is part of the show, but, like, this isn't supposed to be a show. Like, with the native people, like, even like the Oka crisis, that's not documented properly. Like, that's a part of history that's like super important. It's super relative.
I told you about it.
But I wouldn't have known
They
about
didn't
it.
teach it in school.
I asked you why they didn't teach, and you said that it
was
would
a horrible
cause
fight. It was a
it would
horrific-
cause
horrific thing.
it was a
What they
horrific
did.
thing. But like the fact that it happened, we should know about
never
that.
happened.
I should know about that. Like that
should
they
never
it should have never happened, but it did.
Not in today's day and age.
Within the day, they brought in the army
the
over a
army.
golf course. But like that's not acknowledged. I wouldn't have known about this unless you had told me. And like even now, I'm like, why don't we talk about it? Like, because that's the highway I travel on a daily. That's a bridge that I use on a daily. It's not my bridge. That's their bridge. And we fucking bitch and piss and moan about it all the time. Like, but like, that's not right. There's something like seriously not right though. Like, I don't know what the right thing to do is, but that doesn't seem right to me. Like them putting a headdress on the Pope, it just like It's a spectacle.
Yeah, but the natives are doing it as well. The natives are participating in it.
Yeah, but you know what? We have a lot of like these Inuit people that are here that are kind of like trying to make it seem like they're part of Ganawage and part of like this native movement.
Yeah, but
they're
natives,
not
the
native.
natives are encouraging Trudeau to wear this headdress and the Pope to wear the Indian headdress to try to make them part of them, right?
I think there's like a lot of native people who are involved. Yeah, but they can't speak up. They're not allowed to speak up. Anytime one of them does something wrong, they all get blamed for it. And it's true. Like, I had this conversation with Cameron's dad when I was at North last summer. And, like, he shared a lot with me. He was like, people still don't like us. And I was like
who?
Cameron's dad said that to me.
The natives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that fucking
the
breaks
hatred. I never saw hatred like that in my life. I never thought it even existed. Like in Canada, in Quebec.
That's what I was saying.
Like,
To
they
me,
were throwing
like,
rocks at them.
exactly. Who are these people? Like, who would do that?
That was a horrible thing to do.
Like, but that's what I mean. Like, I feel like this public shaming thing, calling out bad behavior when it's like seen.
Well,
like,
they had all these little gangs out in the South Shore on their little mopeds, motorbikes.
Well, like, yeah, but like the cops were doing nothing.
Down at Zellers.
The cops were doing nothing. They're
whole
standing there.
Yeah, they're all gangs of them parked down there. There was a whole crowd of people down there, and they should never allow that.
They had like the cops lined up, even the SQ. Even the SQ was lined up on the highway, and they were watching them. They were peeling down the highway, trying to get back to the reserve, and people were launching boulders, like big fucking boulders at them.
The cops were encouraging it, and that's why the army ended up being there as well, because it was becoming like a civil friggin' war type thing.
The cops are out of control. Like the SPVM are fucking out of control. Like, we say defund the police, that means deck them out with like fucking their civil servants. They're not the military. I can't imagine why we're decking out like the Chateauguay police and sending them off to Toronto with SWAT gear. Who the fuck asked for this? Like, because guess who's paying for it? I'm like, you know what's funny? Jenna Glenn, she was like, guess who paid for the Pope's trip? The natives did.
No, they didn't.
Apparently the natives paid for the fucking Pope's trip here.
No way.
I would not be surprised. I would not put it past them. If it
The
meant...
Catholic Church has billions and billions of dollars.
Do you think they're paying for it? I guarantee they're not paying the tab. Because apparently all these people who are part...
He has to pay his own security.
Apparently all these people who are part of like the Six Nations, whatever, a lot of these people who are higher ups, who are chiefs and who are elected officials of like First Nations groups, they were like, we couldn't get to see him. There was a bunch of people and they said we were supposed to have time to be able to speak with him. There was translation problems. The cops were blocking them off. It's like, what the fuck was the point of all that then, other than a big sideshow? That's all that was. You guys just fucking shit on them again. But like, you just shit on them again. This is supposed to be...
It's a big show, but what is the Catholic Church besides saying, yeah, okay, it was genocide, it was a terrible thing they did to the native people? What else are they going to do?
Well, now they're starting to do the radar thing, and like just... to at least be acknowledged.
How could they fix it?
A lot of natives, a lot of them are not looking for like financial compensation either. No, they should be able to start exhuming bodies soon and have like money donated to a team to be able and I'm not talking $1 million here, because if we can invest $3 billion into just solely our lights for a bridge, I'm pretty sure you can invest a couple billion into helping them out, exhuming bodies. Like Katie's grandmother, for example, her sister went in when her sister at 2 years old, vanished, gone. No death certificate, no nothing. And it's like, did she just make up her sister? She didn't just make it up in her head. That's still a family member that she'll never get to know what happened to her sister. And they just said pneumonia. And it's like, people like Katie's grandma, she should be able to know what happened to her sister. Like, that's not right. Like,
There's a lot of diseases too, but
I'm
there's
sure
no-
it was pneumonia, but to not have a death
but
certificate?
The difference is, with all those diseases back then, we had the disease just as well as the natives had the disease, but we had medicine.
Were we
had
sent to
hospitals,
sanatoriums?
We had all kinds of.
We were not sent to
treatments.
sanatoriums,
Right.
though.
Exactly.
That was
Them,
not
they
recent.
gave them nothing.
Yeah, but
They
like,
let them die.
they do let them die, but like, they were taken from their families. Their parents would camp out on like the lawns of these sanatoriums. This is in the 60s and 70s. Like, this is not that long ago. And like, their parents, like, they're like, oh, I thought my parents abandoned me. I thought my parents just dumped me off one day. And their parents would camp out on like the front of these sanatoriums, and it's like there was no white kids in these places. They were all native kids.
Yeah, and at the same time,
That's Nazi camp. That's
no, but at the same time, they were told they were going to be educated, and that's a good thing for them. And a lot of the parents too said this is probably the best thing for my
That's what they were told.
Because that's
But that's not what was given. No. Like, that's far from what happened at these places. And to me, this is a concentration camp. This is a concentration camp. A sanatorium is the same as a Nazi concentration camp.
It happens all around the world.
But we allow that to happen. Yeah, no, that's what we're doing right now on the other side of the world.
We do it in Ukraine right now.
I think we're doing it in
people. He's forcing the schools with a curriculum of what they're going to teach the kids.
Yeah, that's what's happening here. That's what's happening with Legault here. But you know what? I don't think Putin's doing that. I think Canada's putting out this message, and I think Ukraine's doing that. Because you know what? Putin would have done it a long time ago. They need more resources, more resources, more resources. How much more resources do you guys need before you're going to win this war? Hopefully not 20 years worth.
Who wants the oil and gas sector?
He already had it.
No,
We gave it up. The Keystone XL. Remember before Aaron O'Toole and Andrew Scheer? There was that blonde lady, the little short bob cut?
Yeah.
And she kept saying, you guys keep canceling my deal on me. Like, one more time and I'm done. They canceled the deal on her one more time because Trudeau and Legault piggybacked off each other to get elected. Neither of them would have gotten elected if they didn't piggyback off each other because 23% of the vote went to Quebec.
Yeah, because everybody believed that Trudeau would not have the oil and gas in Canada. He would stop all the pipelines and he would save.
But if you'd explain to us, that's not logical. It's not logical. You can't just eliminate it overnight.
And we had a oil tanker crash in Quebec. Remember when the oil tankers on the trains crashed?
I do remember that.
And half the city got blown up with it.
Mm-hmm.
Our little town. And that brought a lot of attention to people's eyes on how dangerous the oil is.
But you know what? It wasn't even
and then you got all the oil leaks.
It wasn't even actual crude oil. It was propane. The Keystone XL pipeline, it was a propane pipeline that was already built. What's on the other side of Quebec? There's the ocean. What's it connected to? Russia! We turned down that pipeline. Putin took it. It was a pre-built pipeline. He was like not going to say no. Why would he say no to that?
On the other side of the planet.
On the other side of Quebec, there's the Canadian continent. On the other side of the water is immediately Russia. Is the Ukraine. Look at a map. I'm not shitting you. I've seen this coming for years. I've been like, I only tuned in to news when Trump got elected, and I was like, hey, I should maybe look into also Canadian news, and then both news seemed kind of fucked up and not true. So I started looking into Russian news and Al Jazeera and WION and even the Australian news, but not really, because everyone knows that news isn't real. This has been a long time coming. I just hope it doesn't take 20 years of fucking bombing the shit out of people for us to figure out maybe we shouldn't be there. Because that's how long it took last time. 20 years too long. And it sucks because people like Dale fucking... You see Dale now? He's so awkward to talk to, and he's just like so amped and into the conversation because he's missed out on so much of his life already. It's very sad. Dale, Allison's brother. The last time he came over, he was so excited to have a conversation with me. Yeah, but he used to talk like military, like he used to have like no emotion. Not anymore. Not since his mail order wife. Ever since he got his mail order wife, he's like so much more into the conversation now, and he just like is hyped to have like any kind of human communication and contact that's genuine. It's very sad. All right.
Being governed by intellectual elites that operate in cahoots with the mainstream media? I know you have, and you're right. Hello there, you 5.7 million awakening wonders. Thanks for joining us on this voice of your truth. Turn on the notification bell because that's the only way we can guarantee that you'll see our fantastic content. As you know, I had a conversation with Bernardo Campos, a brilliant philosopher who believes that intellectual elites and the mainstream media are framing our reality in a manner that always means that materialism will have precedence. This means that only the things that can be measured are of value, and instead of prizing insight, we prize possessions. How much do you want to change reality? How committed to this revolution are you? These are the kind of questions we have to ask ourselves and one another. And a brilliant philosopher like Bernardo is invaluable in this discourse. Stay to the very end of the video because he raises some fantastic points. And you're going to feel your mind expanding with every frame you watch.
How can we transition from a materialist understanding of reality to an idealist one when it's when all of our metrics, all of our systems of measurement and our appreciation of reality is so deeply undergirded by the materialist model? How could we even begin to appreciate it?
It is totally appreciable. Actually, it is very easy to understand the world as being mental. It is an illusion to think that our understanding of the world is based on materialism. Look, let me make an analogy. Imagine an airplane. It has sensors for airspeed, air humidity, pressure, and these sensors interact with the real world outside the airplane. And what the pilot sees upon these measurements by the sensors are things displayed on the dashboard of the airplane. Quantitative things, the number for airspeed, the number for altitude, and so on and so forth.
In a
You
dog
can
kennel,
fly by
all the
instinct.
dogs,
You don't need a
puppies,
transparent windshield to see the world
Why?
and
as
they're
it
shooting
is.
all the
You can
dogs
fly purely by
just for the
instinct.
sake of
Well,
shooting the dogs.
that's us.
But you don't
We
even
are
know
the
that.
pilots.
You don't even know that.
Sensors are our sense organs.
But you don't even know that. What you're seeing is what's actually happening.
And the measurements.
Until I see Russians invading us,
And
until I see, yeah, but are they Russian or are they Ukrainian?
because they have the Russian armbands.
Until they're marching outside my house, I honestly, but I don't see it because they're not doing that in front of me. When they start doing that in front of me, then I might. I don't want to see videos of that shit. Do you have any idea how much they can fake stuff, Dad? You see special effects? See how movies are made nowadays? I saw when they first started bombing. And there were people who were not even bleeding. Like they were like being pulled out of rubble who were not even bleeding, and they're like aggressively wrapping this woman's head out and just like shoving her up. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
so it's possible that our reality is our reality is limited to those interfaces. There are possibly whole strata and frequencies of data and information that we simply can't appreciate because we don't have the instrument. So it's likely then that we are just experiencing a dashboard, a limited number of all potential realities due to the limitations of our instruments. It would be a coincidence, an odd coincidence, if the number of sensory instruments we had was equal to the number of potential information streams. So that at a minimum there is an almost unlimited potential for just don't receive. So we're living in a kind of a general subjectivity, as it were, a sort of a civilization-wide or a species-wide subjectivity, because we're only receiving these few streams of information.
The evolution will only equip us with the sensors and dials on the dashboard that present information relevant to our survival and the ability to reproduce. So it's a virtual certainty that there is a lot more going on in nature It doesn't have a direct bearing on our survival, and therefore we would not have evolved sensors or dials to display information related to that. Now, some physicalists might say, well, what you mean by this is that, for instance, we only see a part of the electromagnetic spectrum. We don't see infrared, we don't see ultraviolet. But what I mean here is something much beyond that. What I mean is that we cannot cognize things that are inconceivable to us because we have evolved to think in terms of the parameters and the paradigm of our dashboard. Everything that doesn't fit into that paradigm will be in existence insofar as we are concerned, even though it may be in our immediate neighborhood if it doesn't have a bearing on our survival. So it stands to reason that there are a great many things about nature that are flat out not only not perceivable by us, but inconceivable by us.
If we are incapable of achieving a shared objectivity about an apparently real external world that we are all participants in, what follows about the scientific orthodoxies that govern our view of reality? I mean, yes, in a broader physical sense, but also in a kind of a contemporary political sense. If we can no longer operate from a place of certainty that there is a thing called the outside world that we all share, that we can assume it has certain qualities, what questions does that raise about the role of science in establishing order? To be a little clearer, I've often wondered, Bernardo, if science ought to be regarded as a subset of capitalism, given that only experiments that are potentially profitable are likely to be undertaken, only information that is beneficial likely to be shared. What claim to real truth can be made under those circumstances? And given too what you've just said about the utility that underwrites our sensory understanding of reality from an evolutionary perspective, i.e. we've only got dials on the dashboard for information that advances us as a species. I wonder what that does to the claims of science, particularly as they are used to underwrite, I don't know, sort of politics, I suppose.
I will agree with the spirit of your question. I will dispute some of the premises, and bear with me. I think there is a shared external world. If you were here sitting next to me, you would describe my study in a way consistent with my own description of it, regardless of whether you like it or not, or whether you wish it to be different or not. So there is something out there. There is a context that we all inhabit. The question is, how certain can we be that we've got a handle on everything that is salient about it when it comes to the life of modern human beings? Because modern human beings, we're not only about surviving, we are about having a life that is meaningful and rich. And there may be a great many salient things about the shared environments that are currently inconceivable to us and which have a direct bearing on our sense of meaning. So when a scientist comes up and says, we figured it all out, we know that the universe is just a mechanism, and there is nothing more to it, life is meaningless anyway, what I would say is, well, you're just being stupid. And Lord Kelvin said the same in 1900, 5 years before Einstein, just started a revolution in our understanding of nature. So there is historical precedence to beware of this, claustrophobic statements that we've figured it all out. I don't think we are anywhere near figuring it all out. The other question is, do we only do experiments that lead to profit? One could, I think this is largely correct, but
to be honest, I only just like the new
we've spent billions of dollars
carpet because I just like my dad.
Have no conceivable practical use for my lifetime, maybe the lifetime of the next generation as well. I don't think that is necessarily the problem. I think the problem is the following. Science mistakes an understanding of how nature behaves. Not science, some scientists, especially the ones that like to talk a lot, as if we were sort of the spokespeople of science. They mistake an understanding of how nature works for an understanding of what nature is. They mistake an understanding of the behavior of nature for the nature of nature. To give you a metaphor to clarify this, you can be a 10-year-old kid and play a computer game so well that you are a world champion. You know how the game behaves. You know that if you shoot there, you score points. If you touch that wall, you die. And you have a sort of convenient fiction about what's going on that allows you to win the game. That convenient fiction is, I am a little man inside the monitor going around and shooting other guys. And you're a world champion. That doesn't mean that you actually understand what's going on. You don't understand the hardware and the software and all the electronics.
What?
Transistors and all this.
Speaking some truth, my friend.
Constitutes the game. Now, the danger is that in science, we become like this 10-year-old world champion. We have convenient fictions about what nature is doing. Namely, there are these 17 quantum fields and they interact in this and that way, and it's all mechanical. And we think that we understood nature. Well, that would be as silly as that kid thinking that he understands the computer game. No, he just has
yes,
a convenient
sir.
about it. And the game behaves as though the
Thank
convenient fiction
you.
were true.
Speaking some truth.
Nature behaves as though our current convenient fictions in science or scientific models were true. And that's all you need to make predictions
That's great.
that hold out to scrutiny. But our convenient fictions historically have changed all the time. What is the chance that they are literally right now? I would say, well,
yes, sir.
It's virtually zero. So history cautions against hubris when it comes to science. We should be a little bit more aware of the limitations of our own stories, our own narratives.
How do these ideas affect the way that power behaves politically? And for example, Bernardo, you've said that our worldwide view is a materialistic one. It's held by intellectual elites and amplified by the mainstream media. That scientists need validation of a group to develop and hold on to a world view. How this convenient fiction that nature is behaving as it seems to behave under the limited observation that we're able to within the limits of the observations that we're able to make. How is this affecting the way that power behaves, the way that resources are distributed, the kind of philosophies that we live within?
It has a direct bearing on every aspect of life. Give you an example. If materialism is true as a metaphysics, then all that exists are material entities. Mind, insight, maturity, wisdom, these are all supposed to be ephemeral byproducts of certain material organizations. And when you die, all of your insights, all of your wisdom, your maturity, they die with you. And all that's left behind is matter. If you believe in this, and if this becomes the mainstream narrative of a culture, as it has become for us already for about 200 years, then the only conceivable purpose of life, the only conceivable meaning to life, is to accumulate material stuff. Because there is nothing else. Nothing else comes into the picture. And if you put resources to make and distribute the material stuff that everybody's trying to accumulate, then you hold a large degree of control over people's lives because their psychology makes them vulnerable to that kind of thing. Now imagine a world in which everybody were aware that what is actually primary, what actually exists, is mind, and that what we call matter is just an appearance of mental processes. So my inner mental processes appear to measurement as the patterns of my brain activity, and the mental processes, the mind at large, the mind of nature, appear to us as galaxies, quasars, black holes, suns, planets, and moons. If you understood that, then you would immediately see that the real and only possible goal of life is to mature, is insight collection, not object collection. We are here to collect insights. We are here to evolve, not only intellectually, but mentally as a whole. If you've become wise by the time you are on your deathbed, you've had a good life and your wisdom is not going to disappear. It's going to be seeped into the rest of nature the moment you no longer exist as an individual entity. If that's how everybody's living, you can't control people by hanging in front of them the carrot of a new pair of shoes. It's a whole different ballgame.
Well, let me know in the comments below what you thought of that video. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Do you agree with this potentially earth-shattering new modality? Does it remind you of spiritualism? Does it remind you of stuff you've read in the Bible, the Quran, or the Bhagavad Gita? Is this spirituality re-emerging in scientific form? It's fascinating, isn't it? Let's learn more together. Give the video a thumbs up, share it around, turn on the notification bell. If you don't subscribe yet, for God's sake, subscribe now. We're offering you new models of reality. Sign up to my mailing list there as well so I can stay in constant touch with you. We do live events online and also in the real world, if there is such a thing. Maybe the whole thing's a crazy dream. Stay free.
He rules Russia with an iron fist.
Vladimir Putin!
Around the world, Vladimir Putin is seen as one of the 21st century's most ruthless dictators. He's amassed unimaginable wealth and a cult-like following.
Потому что вместе мы команда, да?
His devotees lured by his carefully crafted calendar-like images. But Putin's power, it seems, relies heavily on his poisons, man-made chemical weapons his secret agents deploy to keep Putin's enemies, wherever they may be, at bay.
Joanne,
He was
what can I do for you?
so badly. Russia's current chemical of choice is the deadliest poison on Earth. Novichok.
It's a sophisticated chemical, probably the most deadly chemical that man has ever made.
A single egg cup full of Novichok will decimate an entire city and kill 1 million people. Tonight, we'll investigate Vladimir Putin's 20-year campaign of terror that's in
No. Johan. Oh. Oh my god. If I wanted a Jewish mother, at least I'd have money. Well, I told him my truck and not my car, so I still have another vehicle I could live in. Hi, Jack. Come here. Okay.
It's Canadian Tire's Summer of the Century. Shop with
So.
rewards for thousands of CT money and get just about anything at Canadian Tire, like throwing a cottage water park fiesta. Now that's a Canadian cottage party.
Working on it.
An active military.
Jesus. Oh! Is it just gonna answer? Okay, I guess I have to go to a different tab.
Wait.
Hello.
Huh?
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's like I have 2 tabs open apparently, so call them both.
Oh, that's weird.
What up?
Oh, with you?
I'm at the total my truck.
Yeah, I know. Where is you?
I'm at my mom's.
Oh shit. Okay, I'll come see you.
What?
I'm gonna come visit. I'm like right around the corner. I'm in Chattagee.
Oh no shit! You can fucking roll me a joint then. Or you can attempt to roll me a joint. Okay, I'll come outside. Yay! Visitors!
Okay, I'll be there in like 5 minutes.
Okay, bye.